Hello and good afternoon. My name is Chuck Christie, and it is my pleasure on behalf of Talk Network Radio to produce this special report. It involves a special reading of a recently published article in a German magazine entitled Glossen. With us today is the author of that internationally published article, Dr. Gabriella Christie Toletti. And now, it is again my pleasure to welcome my love and your host, Gabriella, to the microphone to begin her reading.
The German Bandoneon meets the tango of the Southern Cone. Have you ever heard Argentine or Uruguayan tango music? Then you probably heard the enigmatic, unique, sensual, big-hearted, and bouncing sound of a bandoneon. Like many cultural traditions in South America's Southern Cone, the bandoneon comes from Europe. It was invented in the 1940s by German music teacher, musician, and publisher Heinrich Band, 1821-1860, in Krefeld, Germany, under the name Bandoneon. Music was an important part of Band's formative years. In fact, he was the son of musical instrument dealers, and from an incredibly early age, he showed interest in building and in playing instruments. The predecessor of the bandoneon is another German instrument known as the concertina. The bandoneon is a hand organ-like reed instrument and has button keys on both sides. It belongs to the concertina and accordion family, and it is sometimes referred to colloquially as a squeeze box. Henry Band played the concertina, but felt frustrated by its limitations. This led him to create a more advanced version of the instrument that could be used to play new styles of German music, and that could have the capability of replacing an entire church pipe organ. While the concertina was mostly played to accompany German folk music songs, the bandoneon was originally intended to be an instrument used in church music. Circa 1870, about 10 years after Heinrich Band's death, German sailor emigrants brought the bandoneon to Argentina and Uruguay. In the Rio de la Plata region, the name changed from the German bandoneon to the Spanish bandoneon. Once it arrived on the Southern Cone shores, the bandoneon soon found its true destiny in a new type of music and dance that was developing in Argentina and Uruguay, known as Tango. Before long, the bandoneon became the chief instrument and the main symbol of tango music. Tango originated in the mid-1800s and early 1900s, when South America's Southern Cone experienced massive immigration by the millions. European migration to Argentina and Uruguay during the 19th century and the beginnings of the 20th century happened mainly to escape the horrors of war and poverty in Europe. Tango is an urban musical style that emerged in the lower-class neighborhoods of the two port capital cities of the Rio de la Plata region, Buenos Aires, capital of Argentina, and Montevideo, capital of Uruguay. It is safe to say that tango would have never been born without the influences of immigrants who arrived in Argentina and Uruguay in the mid-1800s and early 1900s. Most immigrants came from Italy and Spain, but there were also immigrants from Germany, France, England, Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Armenia, Africa, etc. Actually, in the late 1980s, tango was known in the Rio de la Plata as the music of the immigrants. Tango is the result of a combination of German waltz, Czech polka, Polish mazurka, Bohemian Scottish music, Spanish-Cuban habanera, African candombe, and also Argentine local music such as milonga, which is a lively musical genre that originated in the Rio de la Plata and was popular in the 1800s. Milonga derived from an earlier style called payada contrapunto that consisted of competitive composing and singing of verses in a lively 2x4 tempo. Although tango started in the impoverished Rio de la Plata neighborhoods, it soon spread rapidly, reaching the core of Buenos Aires and Montevideo, where people of all social classes started to engage in this dance and to enjoy this new musical genre. Tango's popularity soon became unstoppable, and it reached other countries, such as Finland, Japan, France, and the United States. In 2009, UNESCO approved a proposal signed by the governments of Argentina and Uruguay to include tango in the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. Immigrants brought to the Rio de la Plata their traditions, their culture, their music, and, as we already explained, also the original musical instruments such as bandoneon. This instrument became the perfect match for this emerging urban musical genre called tango. The bandoneon has had entirely urban reference in South America ever since it arrived in the Southern Cone and got associated with tango. In my opinion, something extraordinary occurred when the bandoneon migrated from Germany to the Rio de la Plata. This migration story reveals a perfect kairos moment in the history of music. In fact, the bandoneon migrated to the Rio de la Plata when tango was emerging. The conditions were right. The time was opportune for bandoneon and tango to find each other and flourish together. In the streets of Argentina and Montevideo, bandoneon met tango and they both immediately became inseparable. This is a perfect marriage in the history of music. This beautiful migration story is also a symbol of the beauty and creativity that can emerge when several cultural traditions come together in perfect harmony. Many of the first bandoneon tango players were of African descent. Black musicians picked up the bandoneon as soon as it arrived in Buenos Aires from West Germany in the mid-1900s. The first documented bandoneon player was an African Argentine called José Santa Cruz, who was a soldier in the War of the Triple Alianza. The first master of bandoneon in Buenos Aires is believed to have been an African Argentine virtuoso named Sebastián Ramos Mejía, affectionately known as El Pardo. By day, Mejía drove a horse-drawn tramway in Buenos Aires, and by night he played the bandoneon. In 1903, he taught an incredibly young Vicente Greco how to play the bandoneon. Greco, who became a very recognized composer, was one of the 8 children of a modest means couple of Italian descent. Soon, European immigrants from all ethnicities and all walks of life embraced this beautiful instrument and tango music. As far as gender is concerned, most bandoneon players have traditionally been men. However, an early 20th century picture reveals women playing the bandoneon as part of an Argentine female orchestra that performed for coffee shops, weddings, parties, and dances. But for the most part, the bandoneon remains an instrument associated with masculinity. Women who currently play the bandoneon feel a special sense of pride for defying social norms. Susanna Radcliffe, an Argentine female bandoneon player, shared that men look indeed surprised when they see her walking around Buenos Aires with a bandoneon case. This reaction of people is gratifying to her because it makes her feel as if she is indeed stealing or claiming the bandoneon. As tango developed, the demand for bandoneons also increased. In fact, bandoneons became an integral part of tango orchestra, orquesta típica, and of tango ensemble bands, which should traditionally consist of at least 2 bandoneons, 2 violins, a piano, a flute, and a double bass. Some tango ensembles with fewer instruments are also common. The bandoneon can also stand on its own as a solo instrument or accompany singers. Tens of thousands of German bandoneons were manufactured around 1910, primarily to be exported to Argentina and Uruguay, while some bandoneons were also shipped to Lithuania, where the instrument became popular in folk music ensembles. The number of bandoneons shipped to the Southern Cone soared rapidly as tango music became increasingly popular. For instance, in 1930 alone, 25,000 German-made bandoneons were imported to Argentina. But despite the popularity of tango music, bandoneon mass production eventually decreased because of the disruption of German manufacturing during World War II. Consequently, the prices of bandoneon increased dramatically, and eventually there were no more German bandoneons for export. There are 2 main types of bandoneons: the chromatic, which produces the same notes whether the bellows are opening or closing, and the achromatic, where opening and closing varies the expression, producing different sets of sound. The bandoneon is played with both hands. Finger keys control the opening of free reeds, while the movement of the hands produces air pressure that is captured in the central bellows of the instrument. When playing the bandoneon, the timbre constantly changes depending on the air pressure, direction of the bellows, and choice of keyboard for the melody and accompaniment. It is usually played sitting down because of the size, weight, and almost perfectly square shape. Because of the bandoneon rough edges, bandoneonists usually place a cloth on their legs to protect their clothes when playing the instrument. The playing position enables a much more powerful accentuation that it would be feasible on an accordion or on a concertina. The bandoneon's intensity, characteristic of tango, is pronounced by the way the reeds overblow, generating an edge to the note that cannot be reproduced on other free reed instruments. Despite the bandoneon's popularity, the instrument was seldom produced in Argentina. In 1944, a rare effort to produce a local bandoneon was made by the Argentine Society of Composers and Performers. This Argentine-made bandoneon was tested by the great Aníbal Troilo. The Argentine musician Aníbal Troilo, 1914-1975, was the leading 20th century bandoneon virtuoso, tango composer, and tango band leader. Despite this attempt to locally make a bandoneon, musicians continue to prefer the craftsmanship, sound, and exquisite quality of authentic German bandoneons. By the 2000s, classic German bandoneons became increasingly scarce and therefore extremely expensive, which discouraged many aspiring musicians of becoming bandoneon players. This critical shortage of bandoneons led the National University of Lanús in Argentina to pilot a project to manufacture locally made bandoneons. As part of the project, a vintage German bandoneon was unassembled to figure out how to produce a comparable and more affordable instrument in Argentina. The project was named Proyecto Pichuco in honor of Argentine musician Aníbal Troilo, who was affectionately known as Pichuco. In 2014, the University of Lanús announced the successful development of an Argentine-made bandoneon. By 2017, Proyecto Pichuco developed 5 bandoneons, and about 40 more are being produced to be used in local high schools. The bandoneons produced by Lanús University as of 2018 are still not for sale to the public, but the hope is to eventually produce more locally made bandoneons and to market them for about half of the cost of a vintage bandoneon. The production of new bandoneons is extremely important for the future of tango music, but the magic and mystery of the vintage German bandoneon will probably never be matched. Vintage original instruments are displayed in German museums, such as the Bandoneon Museum of the Family Preuss in Lichtenberg and the collection of the family Steinhardt in Kirchstatten, Freiburg. Rodolfo Mederos, a bandoneon player from Buenos Aires, shared these thoughts regarding the instrument. It was made and developed in Germany, at a time when things were meant to last, a time when plastic didn't exist. The materials were noble: wood, metal, leather, mother of pearl were all used in its construction. For a bandoneonist, the instrument becomes one's alter ego. It's partly oneself. One feels possessed and possessor. As we expressed before, variations of tango are currently popular worldwide. For example, tango music and its soulmate, the bandoneon, are becoming increasingly popular in the United States. I recently had the pleasure to meet a musician who plays tango music and also dances tango, American bandoneon player Troy Mattox, who lives in Richmond, Virginia. Music has been an important part of his life since he was about 10 years old. Mr. Mattox has been a musician for many years and plays several instruments. About playing the bandoneon, Troy said, "The bandoneon has a unique soul that cannot be replaced with anything else. It is unique, it is rare, and it sounds just magnificent. I would say that is one of these things that drew me to bandoneon, is its unique sound that you cannot get from any other instrument." You can say that about other instruments, but there is something special about an instrument that was originally made to be a replacement for an entire pipe organ in a church. It is a portable church organ. It is powerful. It is extraordinarily complex. and it is exceedingly difficult to learn. The beauty of the bandoneon is mostly in its power and complexity. It provides a somber, sensual, and unusual sound. It is also beautiful and mesmerizing to observe a bandoneonist playing this enigmatic instrument with passion and love for tango. But the beauty of bandoneon is also in its history, in the journey of migration that culminated in the marriage of bandoneon to tango. This was a true kairos moment in the history that changed and shaped the course of Southern corn music, a love story that has lasted and will continue to last forevermore. The reciprocal adaptation of tango, which is the result of a combination of music from different parts of the world, to the original German bandoneon, and of bandoneon to tango, also symbolizes the magnificent melting pot of cultures that occurred in Latin America in the mid-1800s and early 1900s. This process of assimilation and integration of cultures and races facilitated the emergence of new, colorful national identities. You can have a sample of this brave new world when you listen to tango. Have you ever heard Argentine or Uruguayan tango music? Then you probably heard the enigmatic, unique, sensual, big-hearted, and bouncing sound of a bandoneon.